I've been a fan of horror movies for as long as I can remember, and they've all been important in their own ways. But if I had to pick one that truly stands out to me, one that was the perfect movie at the right time to change the way I viewed the entire genre, it would have to be 1990's Tremors. Probably not what you were expecting, is it? Most people would probably name a classic like Hitchcock's Psycho or John Carpenter's Halloween. These are the cliche movies that horror snobs usually cite as their favorites. And while those are great, they didn't have the same impact for me as the underground terrors in Ron Underwood's Tremors. I was born in 1980 and started watching horror at a really young age. Probably way too young, but my parents had a hard time keeping it away from my siblings and me. We made deals like, if you let us watch this, we promise we won't have nightmares and try to sleep in your room, which often worked. I think honestly, my parents could tell that we were definitely scared, but understood the difference between reality and horror films, and they would eventually give in and let us watch. Now, I remember watching these movies growing up and truly being frightened and covering my eyes almost every minute of runtime. I think I watched them to act like an adult more than to appreciate them as movies. It was more of a dare than an actual enjoyment, and I definitely had nightmares every time and was afraid to go into a dark room for days after watching. This continued on for years until 1990, when the movie Tremors was available to rent on VHS. I assumed that this would be just another movie that would scare the shit out of me, and I would have to cover my eyes for the majority of it. But, for some reason, it was different this time. It may have been a combination of a lot of things, but my age and the structure of the movie itself turned me from a scared horror movie eye coverer to a brave, creature-loving horror fan. Instead of closing my eyes, I actually enjoyed seeing all the creature effects, and I remember not being afraid after the movie was over and truly loving the overall experience. So why did this movie mark the change in my horror viewing experience? I think my age had a lot to do with it, but also, this was my first horror movie that took place almost entirely in the daytime. It was daylight through the majority of the film. You could actually see the creatures instead of them hiding in the shadows. You got a good look at them multiple times and could understand what the characters were dealing with. This simple little detail, combined with my now 10-year-old self, made me appreciate horror monsters as fantastical creatures created for a movie world, rather than scary monsters that might come for me at night. There may have been other movies that took place in the light, but they were usually kid-friendly and not as realistic and scary. Tremors was still a legit horror movie, with real monsters and real consequences for the characters, that just happened to take place during the day, allowing me to bring my fears into the light. I bet most of you have similar experiences. You probably have a movie that made you start loving horror films. Let me know in the comments if any of you have had similar experiences or have a particular movie that's important to you and really started your love of the horror genre.